Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Good afternoon. Sorry, this Sunday sprinkle is a little bit later than usual. Me and Mark went to church this morning, and then afterwards we ended up staying for a explore class and lunch where we got to learn all about what the church we've been attending is about, what they stand for, what their values are, what their doctrine is, what their just their everything. And it was really neat. I'm really glad we stayed. But anyway, life happens, so this is coming out a little later than usual. But this afternoon, I want to talk a little bit about prayer shawls, so let's jump right in. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, you can see that I'm actually wearing one of my prayer shawls, and you can also see Nessa has come to join us for this podcast. But I am wearing one of my prayer shawls. This was gifted to me by women at my church back home. They made this for me. They sent it to me in high school. And then actually right here behind me is another one that they made for me while I was in college. And they are so special to me. And I had always known like that prayer shawls were a thing, but I didn't really know the history behind them or the significance of them. So today I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because I think they are so neat and can connect us even closer to God and closer to the history of them, the biblical times when people wore these as an everyday garment. So with that being said, I'm going to read a little bit about them from this Bible study that I did last year with a group of people on my softball team that changed my life. I loved it so much. I highly, 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 highly recommend it. It's by Christy McClelland, and it's called Jesus and Women, and it's all about how important women truly are to Jesus and what their role was in biblical times and what this means for us today. And it really gives us the historical context of women in the first century. And this woman, Christy, who wrote this, she has learned the Eastern context, Middle Eastern context behind so many passages of the Bible. And like, it's so different from our Western view. And I just learned so much from it. So I highly recommend it. But I wanted to read a little bit about the history of prayer shawls from it. So we call them prayer shawls. They were originally called talit. The talit is a prayer shawl. It has been used and is still used today in a variety of ways, depending on a person's tradition and orthodoxy. The talit is often worn during prayer and worship, and in Numbers 15, 37 through 40, and Deuteronomy 22, 12, the Torah instructed the Israelites to put tassels, tzitzit, I'm probably saying that wrong, on the corners of their garments. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, throughout the generations to come, you are to make tassels on the corners of your garments with a blue cord on each tassel. You will have these tassels to look at, and so you will remember all the commands of the Lord, that you may obey them and not prostitute yourselves by chasing after lusts of your own hearts and eyes. Then you will remember to obey all my commands and will be consecrated to your God." That's Numbers 15, 37 through 40. And Deuteronomy 22, 12 says, "Make tassels on the four corners of the cloak you wear." So yeah, these were like an everyday garment in biblical times. And the purpose was intended to be like a physical and spiritual reminder of God's presence and his commandments. It was a men's garment initially, so it was a rectangular garment worn by men wrapped around their head and their shoulders during prayer. So they did like put it over their heads actually. And Jesus also wore a prayer shawl. And fun fact, these are called the wings of a prayer shawl. And there's several verses and it talks about like Jesus taking one under his wing and you know, like that's a saying for us in our Western culture today, like, oh, you're taking someone under their wing. But like actually physically, biblically, Jesus was probably taking that person with him in his prayer shawl under his wing. So cool. But anyway, that's just some of that history, that context that we miss from our Western lens. So it is kind of more Jewish tradition, and it is still a part of Jewish worship today, but it's I mean, it's a part of the Bible, it's part of the Old Testament, it's a part of the New Testament, and so it's a part of Christianity. And a lot of people today have ministries where they make these prayer shawls. That's exactly why I have these. I just think it's such a cool ministry. And when I was sent this prayer shawl, I also got sent like a little bit of the history along with it. So I'll just read what the women in this group sent to me. In biblical times, Jewish men wore a garment called a talit, or prayer shawl. In the Hebrew language, tal means tent and lit means little. Thus, talit is a little tent. All of the faithful could not gather in what was then called the tent of meeting. So each had a talit as his or her private tent or sanctuary where they could commune with God. It was an intimate, private tent set apart from another that allowed one to totally focus on God. Another way of thinking of the talit is to think of it as one's own prayer closet, because we remember Jesus' words in Matthew 6:6 that says, whenever you go pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. In the Old Testament, we read about the prophet Elijah passing his mantle to Elisha in 2 Kings 2. Many believe his mantle was actually his talit and was symbolic of the power of prayer that Elijah evidenced. His talit was saturated with prayer. In Luke 8, the woman with the issue of blood for 12 years slipped up to Jesus, touched the border of his garment, and was healed. What did she touch? It was probably Jesus' prayer shawl. Being Jewish, he would have worn a talit. The prayer shawl is symbolic of something God is doing today. It's a garment which envelopes a person physically and spiritually in prayer and celebration, in joy and in sorrow. So I love that. And kind of just going off of that, the story about the woman with blood, the issue of blood for 12 years. So that's kind of the whole beginning of this Jesus and Women Bible study. And gosh, this is the coolest Bible study. And that story is so powerful. And actually from this Bible study, I actually got a tattoo of Matthew 9:22 that says, take heart, daughter, for your faith has healed you. And that is from this story, this woman being healed by reaching out and touching the edge of Jesus's prayer shawl. And just kind of going off of that, Jesus heals her. Her faith has healed her. And this scene in Matthew 9 seems to be a literal fulfillment of Malachi 4:2. The Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings. And like I said earlier, these are called the wings of the prayer shawl. And so it seems like a direct fulfillment of that prophecy because Jesus had healing in his wings. Like, that's just so cool. And it's something I would have never put together without this Bible study. So I already hit on this a little bit, but each tassel contains several little knots. So each tassel in the garment, and it combined for a total of 613 knots in the talit, each representing one of the commandments in the Torah. Last thing I want to touch on, the Torah instructed the Israelites to run a strand of blue or violet through the tassels of their talit. And blue and violet were signs or symbols of royalty back in biblical times in surrounding nations of Israel. But it was probably a sign or symbol when they put it in their talit of their royal status of their entire community. The blue cord in every Israelite's tassel symbolized that they were all to be a royal priesthood among the nations, each and every one of them. This idea of the royalty of the nation of Israel was tied to God's covenant relationship with them. The Israelites were not royal because of any worldly qualifications, but they were a royal community because they were God's people. Deuteronomy 7, verses 6 through 8 say, "For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be his people, his treasured possession. The Lord did not set his affection on you and choose you because you were more numerous than the other peoples, for you were the fewest of all peoples. but it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors, that he brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the land of slavery, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And then verse 9 goes on to say, know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments. So God set them apart with his love, and his love lifted them up. I just want to read a little bit more from Christy McClelland. God's choice to remind his people of their royal lineage in him is especially impactful when you consider the fabric of the Israelite culture and their national identity at the same time God gave them his instruction. When God told them to run regal cords through their tassels, the people were still working to shed the national identity that they had borne for so many years in Egypt, an identity associated with with slavery. And God had not only freed them from their slavery, but he immediately reminded them that he had made them regal and royal. It was as if God was saying, I know that Egypt said you were and how you were mistreated there, but I say you are a royal priesthood, a holy nation set apart by my love. Live in the identity I have given you, forgetting any other label the world has tried to place on you. So I just love all of that. I think it's an awesome reminder of God's love for us. I think it's a great reminder of our royal lineage as children of God. And I think these prayer shawls are so special. So I would recommend getting one. It really does. When I wear it and when I pray in it, I really do feel just like a sense of peace and a very intimate connection with the Lord. I also think these are wonderful gifts. So maybe give one to someone you love in the upcoming holiday season. Anyway, thank y'all so much for joining me this week. I hope you learned something new today, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will see y'all next week, and I pray y'all have a wonderful week. Bye.